Hi, everybody. Thank you guys so much for coming. My name is Shana Newberger. I am the Senior Executive Director for the American Cancer Society. Many of you know my story, but for those that don't, I am a 17-year cancer survivor, so no surprise, my love for this organization. But I feel like my love is also deeply rooted in getting all of you folks to truly understand the incredible work the organization is doing. We have been around for 111 years. There are not many organizations that can say that, but we continually need to engage our community members and understand that there is still so much work to do, and that really takes every one of you and beyond getting involved. And so you will hear tonight a little bit about the research work that we are doing and why it is so critical. But as I think about the work we're doing and, where we need to go, it is not just about saving lives like mine, and I'm sure many of you who have had loved ones diagnosed, but it's also about the quality of life that we're able to lead because of the great groundbreaking research that we're continuing to do. And so I wanted to thank you. And Stacy, I'm probably stealing some of your thunder, but I would be remiss to not personally thank Stacy for this incredible vision that she has laid out with the collaborative. Fiona and Sanjay for hosting us at this incredible venue, their sweet home. And Esther, I know you're hiding because you don't like recognition, but many of you have heard from Esther, but she is an incredible champion as well. And so Stacy will make those thank yous, but I would be remiss if I didn't do that as well. So Stacy, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you to Sanjay and Fiona for your cherished friendship, generous financial support, and continuous hospitality with hosting impact events like this. It's spectacular. So great to be here. Thank you. Important ACS-funded research only gets accomplished with each of us, each of you in this room, playing a vital role. These brilliant researchers require donors, staff, and volunteers to bring their passionate ideas forward, research that we all hope saves lives. Thank you for choosing to play that vital role, or maybe should I say roles, as I've mentioned to some of you. Once you're part of the ACS family, we encourage you to wear as many hats as you might see fit, and even some that we force fit onto you, but hopefully caringly. Many of you are part of ACS's CEOs Against Cancer board and other leadership roles, and we're glad that you're here, and we hope that if you haven't had this opportunity to engage in this manner, that you'll enjoy being able to do that here tonight. Our videographer, Carly Lackey, is also a top fundraiser for ACS's Relay for Life in Carlsbad. And our photographer, Sarah Morgan, has recently brought a special project for the Breast Cancer Survivorship Portrait Series to light that she's had a vision for a long time and partnered with ACS, so thank you. And thank you for bringing your gifts here tonight so that we can have documented this evening, so we appreciate that. I love that this event brings together all the disciplines to create that whole life-changing picture. I hope that you all enjoy the opportunity as much as I do. And if you can't tell, I really do enjoy this opportunity. Like, if any of you that are new, you probably already realize that, so welcome. It's certainly my privilege and my joy to spearhead what we call the ACS SoCal Research Collaborative, which somebody asked me, well, what's that? It's actually just the name that we created to identify our specific ACS donor-directed dollars so that they can be collected appropriately for us to grant. The collaborative has grown so much, more than I could ever imagine, since 2016, our first event, and even more even since last May at this event. And here's a brief background. In 2017, 15 of us funded our first 3-year postdoc researcher for $163,500, and that was a stretch. It was really hard, and I was really disappointed it didn't happen by the end of 2016, and I had to go all the way to February 6th in 2017. I remember it like it was yesterday. But here we are. And since then, we've raised over $1.1 million and contributed to the work of over 10 researchers, including those that you'll hear from tonight. A key experience that makes our collaborative group especially meaningful is that annually, Interested members of the group review and independently rank a handful of ACS rigorously peer-reviewed grants. We then hold a virtual meeting to discuss, scrutinize, re-rank, and select which grants and researchers we want to fund. And that is really exciting. Previously, our fundraising only allowed us to be able to consider 3-year postdoc grants. Now, they're awesome, but earlier this year, thanks to additional members and increased generosity of our existing members, our group selected 2 research grants, including Dr. Chris Heyman, that you're going to hear from tonight on the panel. And if the 7 folks who joined me in making the selections this year could just raise their hands, and if there's not 7 of you raising your hands, I'm going to call you out. So like Adrian, Fiona, Lynn, Phil, Kelly and Jeff did it from their Portugal anniversary trip. Mark Phillips and Farouk, okay, thank you. We take this role very seriously. Not everybody that donates wants to actually participate in this manner. They say, oh, I trust the program, I trust the system. But those of us that do participate, it's extremely special to be involved at that level with what's happening with our dollars that get donated. So that's very exciting. It's important to be aware that at that point that we review the grants, there's no wrong answers. All the grants that are in front of us have already been rigorously peer-reviewed and deemed as worthy of funding. At that point, it's just us deciding, we'll take that one and that one. It's really intense, though. And if any of the researchers here have participated in the peer review, you could imagine what this personal review is like to then look at some of the grants. So it's pretty awesome. So for those that are interested in that level. Tonight's event is extra special for us because it's our first impact event where all the panelists and the moderators not only were ACS funded, but specific dollars of the collaborative went to fund these researchers. It took us a number of years to get up to the point where we could do that, and that is super exciting. But don't miss the sunset, because that is also stunning. Just glance that way while I tell you this next point. Another exciting nuance, like Becky and I were talking about, is that last May, Becky White and Dr. Stephanie Fraley, who had been funded by American Cancer Society, at this event in May, went on to get a collaborative grant funded by another source. So we even bring researchers together to come up with additional funding that isn't even the funding here. So we helped make that happen. So that's super exciting. So enough for me for now, because I'm going to close later too. But let's direct our attention to our panelists and to Dr. Bouvet and Dr. Becky White, who will co-moderate with our panelists. Thank you.
I'll just say a couple things about how much I appreciate the American Cancer Society. My name is Mike Bouvet. I'm a cancer surgeon at UCSD in the VA. And when I was starting about 25 years ago in my career, I got an American Cancer Society Research Scholar Grant, which was a 4-year grant. I think it was $150K per year. And that really got my whole research career started. It was a great funding mechanism. And then as part of the payback for getting that, I had to review grants for the ACS for 6 years. And I flew out to Atlanta in January and June, 2 very different times a year in Atlanta. But I got to go to take the MARTA from the airport to the downtown where the ACS headquarters were. So I felt like that was about 10 years of my life, very devoted to the ACS. And then when I got at UCSD, I became the PI of the ACS Institutional Research Grant, which is a really special grant. It funds early stage investigators, like within the first few years of their academic appointment. And we just found out a few days ago that we got renewed for another 3 years. So thank you. So this is a real exciting evening for me. And I guess we're going to start it off by just have the panelists introduce themselves. And let's just start right now with Shiri Gur-Cohen. And tell us, Shiri, Tell us a little bit about yourself and what your research is about.
Happy to. Thank you all for being here today and spending your time to come and listen and help everyone with this important mission. So I'm Sherry. I'm a chemist in training. I'm not even a cancer biologist in training. I did my PhD at the Weizmann Institute studying actually immunology. Then I moved to New York to do stem cell biology at the Rockefeller University. So as you can see, none of my training was ever cancer biology. I opened my lab at UC San Diego at the Sanford Consortium 2 years ago. And I'm super thankful for the American Cancer Society pilot grant, the institutional grant, that really enabled a result that we got really by accident. Right now, to have almost half of my lab really studying cancer-initiating cells and how they are fueling the cancer to grow, to metastasize, and later down the road also to resist therapy. So I kept it short.
No, you did a good job. Okay, we're going to pass the microphone between Becky and I here. Becky, you want to introduce the next researcher?
I can introduce myself. Yeah. Okay, great. So, hi. Well, it's nice to get to know people here tonight. My name is Chris Hyman. I'm a professor at the University of Southern California. And I've been at USC for now 25 years. I came to do my postdoc after I got my PhD at Harvard, where I actually was going there to become a virus hunter and go to Africa and search for, viruses. But I was persuaded to go into chronic disease epidemiology, working on some of the very large cohort studies at Harvard, the Nurses' Health Study, Health Professional Study, and others. And I came to USC to lead a very large study. It's called the Multi-Ethnic Cohort Study. I've been there for 25 years. I was also the PI of an institutional research grant at USC for 6 years, and I'm just honored to have received the Impact Award and look forward to talking more about it.
Hi, everyone. I'm Karina Antal. It's been great talking to some of you tonight, and I look forward to talking to more of you afterwards. I got my PhD at UCSD, moved across the street for my postdoc at the Salk Institute, and then moved back to UCSD for my faculty position, which I started my lab last year. Clearly, I love San Diego, didn't want to leave. And my lab studies pancreatic cancer, which is the deadliest of all major cancers, and we're trying to find novel therapeutic strategies for pancreas cancer.
Hello, my name is Stefan Hinz. Also, thank you very much for having me here tonight. It's a great event. I'm from Germany. I got my bachelor's and master's in this town called Lübeck in North Germany. I then did my PhD in Norway in a little biotech company, and we developed a drug for very aggressive breast cancers and lung cancers that is now in clinical trials all over the world. And after that, I went to City of Hope in Los Angeles, and ever since there, I'm working on breast cancer prevention. And that is where I got funded from the ACS as a postdoctoral researcher, trying to figure out what happens to the cells in the breast that allow breast cancer to form.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to introduce myself now, and then I'm going to ask a harder follow-up question. As Stacy mentioned, I'm Becky White. I'm also a surgical oncologist. I also study pancreas cancer. I'm new to the ACS family. I had prior research funding, but I only got my first ACS award a couple of years ago. I got something called a Discovery Boost Grant, which specifically funds high-risk, high-reward research. The kind of research that's hard to get funded by the NIH. So I was hoping now that each of you could maybe tell us about how specifically your ACS funding helped your career and maybe in contrast to some of the other funding agencies.
Start? Sure. So as I told you, I'm not a cancer biologist. And so starting my lab, in many ways, I started from zero. I started from nowhere. I had no results, but I did bring a lot of toolkits that I've learned throughout my time in immunology, in biochemistry, all of this kind of like fit together to something that we came with an idea. And at that point, I think, as you just mentioned, there's a lot of risk in this. You come with an idea, and specifically in my research, we're trying to understand how lymphatic vascular system, which a lot of people don't really know what it is even, because it's really, really understudied. It's considered to be the garbage can of the body. And all of a sudden, I'm coming with an idea and saying, well, listen, this garbage can is actually really, really important for the cancer-initiating cells. And so when people are thinking about it, why would you put the most important cells of the cancer next to a garbage can? It doesn't make a lot of sense. But it was an idea, and we saw results, and we had some kind of insights. And I think, having someone to trust that you have a cool idea, you're bringing a lot of toolkits and technology from other disciplines, and you're bringing it all together and merging it. And I'm super thankful for that trust, because to your question, now half of my lab is actually doing cancer research. We're actually looking at how squamous cell carcinoma of epithelial tissue, specifically in the skin and head and neck cancer, are communicating with this vascular system in our body. And that really opened the door for not only having more funding, of course, but really having prestigious awards, prestigious grants to kind of follow up on that. And I think my lab is really considered to be a cancer stem cell lab right now, and I'm truly honored and fortunate to have that trust.
Yeah, so for me, I think it has to do more of a kind of a validation of my trajectory of my career. 25 years, I've been really trying to understand, as an epidemiologist, a genetic and cancer epidemiologist, trying to understand the genetic underpinnings of prostate cancer. And we made tremendous progress. And actually the Impact Award, which is really focused on trying to understand the greater burden of prostate cancer in populations of African ancestry, both the incidence and mortality. And we made tremendous progress in trying to identify the key genetic underpinnings of the disease. And we're in the process now of developing genetic tests, which we hope will soon be available. And I think ACS recognized this, and it's part of their mission to recognize potentially transformational work. And so it was really just an honor to see my work be recognized in this regard. And this funding is now going to help us take us to the next level, right? It's really going to help us work with companies to try to develop this test, bring the cost down, and make it something that could be implemented, really globally if we possibly could get the cost that low. And so it's really just an honor. Thank you.
So as I mentioned, I just started my lab last year, and similar to Shiri, I was also awarded an ACS pilot grant from Dr. Bouvet's institutional research grant. So this was, I think it was the first grant I applied for, was this ACS grant. And I was fortunate enough to be awarded this grant. And it was great because I had just started my lab a month prior, didn't really have a lot of preliminary data, couldn't apply for these bigger grants. So it was great that this grant allowed me to be able to get some preliminary data. Then I was able to apply for these bigger foundation grants, and later was awarded a foundation grant. So I think this ACS grant sort of seeded that research, and I was able to then continue in the lab. So I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, for me it was a postdoctoral grant, so I was working under a different professor. And this grant that I got really allowed me to do the research that I wanted, because I brought in my own money, so to say. I could really push my project in my direction that I wanted to, and it was really huge because I a little bit deviated from what we do in the lab on a daily basis. I pushed it more into a drug development pipeline, which is also really hard to get funded from other sources, because, to be frank, making drugs is a really low probability job. And through this ACS grant, one, it demanded a lot of respect, and two, it gave me a lot of freedom. And I really pushed this project to a place that we now have drug candidates that we hope to develop further down the road. and we're very positive of getting more money from the national sources right now. So this grant, this postdoctoral grant that I got, the $150,000 approximately, might lead to a bigger $2 million grant now, just based on the freedom I got and the data we received during this time. So it's a really huge return on investment, and it really allowed me to be free thinking in the lab and establish my own research portfolio.
I think we could open it up for questions, right, from any of the audience that wants to ask some of the researchers something about their research. Anybody want to ask any questions? Okay, here we go. Let me bring this over here. Perfect.
So I'm a lay person, I'm not in your research, but I'd like to know, what is the hardest thing in getting started in terms of people, resources, ingenuity, whatever it is? What is the hardest thing for you to overcome to get to that point where you feel like you're making a contribution?
Thinking back, I think at the time was, obviously getting pilot funding is enormously critical. The bar to get investigator initiative funding from NIH is a high bar. Government funding in this area is going down the pay line. It's getting much more difficult. The reviewers are heavily scrutinizing grants with respect to justification for the science you're proposing. So you need to get pilot data. You need to have preliminary data that's supported by pilot projects. That's enormously critical. I think that's where ACS, that's where the IRG grants are enormous. And then there's more of the other side of it is you just have to put a lot of lines in the water. You never know what's going to hit with respect to grant funding. And you can't necessarily be wedded to a single focused area of research, because you could actually be going down the wrong track and you just don't know it. So I think you need to diversify your thinking, and you need to be aggressive and open-minded and pursue many different avenues for funding. I think I'll let others talk.
Maybe just adding to, really to just echo everything you said, we just talked about it like a few minutes ago. It's really not like recruiting people, it's not resources in terms of like what we want to do, it's not ideas, it's not the innovation that's not the difficult part. It's really, even though it doesn't sound, very attractive in a way, but it's really dollars. At the end of the day, if you have really, really good idea, to get it funded through the federal mechanisms, it's almost impossible until the project is almost completely done. It's literally completely impossible to get it. And so you can have a great idea, you can have really amazing and talented people, you can have the lab, and you can have all the great technology and microscopes and everything in hand. If you don't have the fund to actually have that project in hand, nothing will happen. And maybe just to add into this is that science at the end of the day is collaborative. We know that it's fun to collaborate, it's enriching to collaborate, but we also need to think about it maybe on a broader range of how all of us collaborating together. I cannot definitely fight cancer together. Each and every one of us cannot fight cancer together. But what we all do together by volunteering, taking pictures of that and kind of advocating for cancer, patients, advocates, fundraisers, donors, researchers, all of us together, if we will work together on that and know where the problem is and how hard it is to get that dollars to be funded, I really believe that we will get much, much higher kind of, those innovative ideas to push forward.
So fast forward 10 years, what would you hope to come back and tell us that you've discovered or you have done, each of you, to advance this mission of saving lives from cancer for everyone?
10 years from now, I hope that my research contributed to a place that we have better biomarkers, knowing which women will develop breast cancer before they even get it, hopefully. And obviously, I was working on a drug, so I hope that this drug can progress and actually save women's life.
Yeah, so, 10 years from now, I hope that we understand. So I work on looking at how these proteins called RNA binding proteins that, as the name implies, bind to RNAs, including the RNAs of the, that encode for the proteins that contribute to tumor growth, and how these are dysregulated. So I hope that we'll understand a lot more about these RNAs and how they're dysregulated, and that we'll find ways to target these so we can bring, a drug to market in order to be able to better fight pancreas cancer. And also I'm working on early detection as well to be able to hopefully find a novel biomarker that we can use to be able to identify pancreas cancer, because it's really hard to diagnose. And unless you catch it early, it's pretty much a death sentence. And so we're really hoping that we can find a way to be able to identify earlier.
Could I ask a question?
He's allowed. He's the host.
Okay, I'll go next. I don't know, if I have to wait 10 years, I'll be frustrated, to be honest with you, because and it's interesting, we have all of these interesting discoveries, and I sit around and talk to my students and my postdocs, and we get on conference calls, and we say, everyone just remember this moment right now. We're the only people in the world right now who know how to genetically profile an individual for prostate cancer. And that's when it sinks into them, and they're like, oh wow, I'm not just getting my PhD, I'm making a difference. And so I really think that I hope within the next 2 to 3 years that the information that we have on our computers, on my computer in the car, is one that would really be in a physician's office. Men will be coming in and they'll be getting profiled. They'll know their risk. So this process of informed decision-making for prostate cancer screening, about when you should get your PSA and what you do with the information and the value of the PSA value to get a biopsy, men need to know what their risks are. They don't know what their risk is, right? They do not know. They know they're a man, they're going to get prostate cancer. They might know if they have a family history, and they know their race, ethnicity, and their family history. That's it. Those are the only predictors, but we can do a lot better for men. And I think it has to happen immediately, personally.
I'll keep it short because I do want to answer the other question. So I'll keep it short because, so in my family, we have a certain mutation that predisposed to cancer. And we talked about it with someone else, on a different type of cancer, but nobody will ever tell me or anyone else if at all and when a cancer will develop. So we are thinking about cancer as a genetic disease, but we know that this is not the only variant. And so I'm hoping that in 10 years from now, I will be able to tell you exactly what to do in terms of our day-to-day basis, how to sleep, what to eat, in kind of like really functional things and day-to-day things that we can do. So cancer will not be a problem anymore. I'm, very optimistic about it, but I'm really, really hoping that we are looking at cancer not only as a genetic disease, but looking at the non-genetic variables will really help us to have less of those cancer incidents being discovered at the end of the day.
So I, along with probably 10 and 12 other people, are from the tech background rather than the biotech background. And the question I would have for you is, for each of you, what tool could you possibly have had which would make your research dramatically more efficient? I say that with the following in mind. I think in tech, what we've done is made our problem, let me concede that our problem is dramatically simpler than the problem that you deal with, but we spend a lot of time and money in tools and developing data formats and standards, which allows for a lot of research to be shared across institutions. So the question is, is there enough money being spent on creating raw tools for you to do better research, faster research? Vast majority of your dollars go into people rather than tools. That's generally the question. Is there a way of doing this better with better tools and investing more money in tools?
So yeah, I mean, I think better tools would definitely help in some areas. There are areas where we have amazing tools and amazing equipment. It costs a lot of money to run, and so that is sort of one of the issue with some of these tools that allow you to look at every single cell in a tumor and be able to see where that cell is, what it expresses. We have that technology, but it's very, very expensive to do it at scale. Then the other issue is if you do it at scale, you need AI, you need computational power in order to be able to understand it, because there's just so many dimensions that we're looking at when we're looking at a tumor, and having that ability is going to be instrumental. So I think that the next big leap will be from AI enabling us to understand what we're looking at on a much larger scale.
I can also maybe quick thing to say about that. I think the most expensive things in our life in general is time. And making our day more efficient, even if it's not necessarily a tool that I'm holding in my hand, it's one of the most expensive things that I'm having. And if I'm spending most of my time on writing grants, or if I'm spending, and really I'm spending most of my time on writing grants, maybe my ability to be innovative, my ability to be efficient, my ability to help my students and postdocs to design the right experiment, to design the most efficient experiment. I think this is something that I'm thinking about it a lot, and I wish that I had more of this efficient time to do that.
I guess I would say, based on my research, I think a tool that would be helpful has to do with Illumina down the street here in San Diego. You have companies that are with metabolomics or proteomics or with genomics that are the leaders in the field, and there's not a lot of competition to drive the prices down, which is unfortunate, because I think our research at the end of the day suffers, because we could actually do multi-omic analyses in very large numbers of samples and get immediate answers and results if it weren't for the companies and their high prices.
I'd like to comment on that. So,
You're not from Illumina, are you? Yeah. Okay. So, a plant. Yeah.
It's a close situation. So, my name is Robin Toft. I lead the CEOs Against Cancer in Southern California, and Jacob Tyson is the CEO of Illumina, and he's in our CEOs group, rather newly so, and they're actually sponsoring Strides Against Cancer. So I think it is worthy of a conversation to see what, if anything, could be done for ACS researchers to have access to his technology. I can't speak for him, but he's a new CEO in town, and he is very much engaged with ACS.
That's good to hear.
I'll leave it at that.
Great to hear.
And you're stuck with me again. Are you sure? Last call for questions.
One thing that I'm not sure if it was is totally clear. I know many of you that are involved intimately with ACS are aware that, and especially thinking about Chris's grant, that one of the overarching pillars is the disparities and the access to care. And I take for granted a little bit that I already know that that's a pillar of ACS, but for those of you that might not be familiar, ACS's motto, every cancer, every life. In order for us to solve the overall problem, we have to solve those problems. So like even the type of grant that Chris applied for, ACS put into play so that they could have more grants that would go down the avenue of disparage, like circumstances. So there's a lot of that going on, and there's certainly plenty of more information if you're interested in it, but I realize that's something that maybe for my group, maybe I don't cover often enough, and I was just thinking about that as you were talking about the grant, so that's something overarching. So thank you. Wow. Thanks for your passion in this fight against cancer and to help save more lives. I mean, it's amazing. And for us to be able to feel such a part of it is really special, right? You guys, how special is that to be able to say that? So, thank you to everyone here tonight, because you all are instrumental in making a difference. Volunteers, staff, donors, all of us together making such a difference. So I want you to look around and celebrate yourselves. It's very exciting. And thank you all for each playing a personal role in making meaningful research possible. Thank you to the dedication and efforts of my staff partner. I know Shana mentioned Esther earlier. I don't know where Esther is. Esther on for helping co-create and deliver the vision that, I've had and we've had for years, so that's very exciting. So as I said earlier, 'cause eventually it's about the money, since 2016, our SoCal Research Collaborative has raised over $1.1 million, which is very exciting. Yet, please imagine with me the amplification we could have if we could raise our goal of $1 million a year, which I think we have the potential to do. New England is doing it, for crying out loud. We can certainly do it here. I participate in a group out there, and we can't let them, lead the charge. That's kind of ridiculous. So, this year, we've already raised and granted over $436,000. So that's pretty exciting when early on, even a little over $150,000 was barely doable, and it took us a really long time to do it. So that's super exciting. And we achieved these results from the generosity of 18 participants with both one-time and generous multiple-year gifts ranging from $10,000 to $62,000. Imagine our amplified impact if we had more people in the collaborative. And imagine when we get our first six-figure gift, and hopefully more after that. I have a vision. Looks something like that sunset that we saw. Looks really good. So it's that time of year as you consider your year-end charitable giving. I invite you to join us. To start us off, thank you, Emmy Haviland, walked in here tonight with her check. Thank you very much. Woo. I didn't even ask her to do that. She just said, I'm ready. So that was extra special to be able to announce that. So there are commitment cards around, but talking with us also is good. That works. But just let us know what you're interested in. Again, I know so many of you are involved with ACS in many different ways, but just talk to us. We encourage the entry point of $10,000, but if that sounds intimidating, I can figure something out for everyone. I have ways. I know how to make it happen. I have it set up, trust me. And my thought is the gamble's good, your investment is wise, and 100% of your donation goes to research, not overhead, 100%. The grants that we're awarding, the entire amount that we're funding went to the researcher. So we're able to do that. So now I'm going to have those that are part of, it's going to be a little bit hectic for a moment, part of the SoCal Research Collaborative to date, those members stand and come join us with the researchers, because we're going to take a group photo of these researchers with the collaborative. But it would be our pleasure to have new members join us now or in the near future. We're all about that. There's room for everyone. We can make it happen. Thank you again, Sanjay and Fiona, for hosting. This is spectacular. And with feedback from our first event back in 2019 is please give us time to mingle after the program so we can talk to the researchers about some things we heard and give us that opportunity. So if you don't have to rush out, please don't rush out. And they welcome you to stay a little bit longer. And this concludes the formal part of the program. So as the collaborative comes up to be able to take a photo, we invite you and encourage you to mingle, collaborate, eat and drink and enjoy getting to know each other better. And please, eventually, when you drive home safely. And we are so happy to have you. You are invited here, you belong here, and we hope that you consider joining us. Thank you so much.